A significant shift is underway in the southern Caribbean. The United States has dramatically increased its military presence in the region, deploying naval assets, unmanned surveillance systems, and intelligence resources officially under the framework of counter-narcotics operations. This surge coincides with the continuation of U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, initially intensified after 2017 and maintained under successive administrations. Tensions escalated further with a notable development in Trinidad and Tobago, the installation of a U.S.-funded radar system along its northern coast, with a clear line of sight into Venezuelan maritime zones and key oil transport corridors. While Washington describes the system as part of regional security cooperation, Caracas interprets it as direct surveillance aimed at disrupting its energy exports. The combination of economic measures and forward-deployed military capabilities, facilitated through regional partners, suggests a layered strategy that blends economic enforcement with strategic deterrence. The geopolitical calculus shifted when Trinidad and Tobago's former Prime Minister and current opposition leader, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, publicly confirmed that the U.S. radar system is specifically calibrated to monitor vessels suspected of violating U.S. sanctions on Venezuelan oil. She characterized the system as adding a superior layer of protection to efforts tracking illicit energy shipments. This acknowledgement reframes the stated purpose of U.S. regional operations. While counter-narcotics remains a public justification, the radar's technical focus on oil trafficking indicates a broader enforcement mission tied to U.S. sanctions policy. The installation follows Trinidad and Tobago's recent signing of a U.S. Status of Forces Agreement, SOFA, which streamlines logistical and operational coordination between the two militaries. The move sparked domestic debate. Former Prime Minister Keith Rowley expressed concern that deeper alignment with U.S. security priorities could draw Trinidad into regional tensions, potentially jeopardizing its critical energy infrastructure, much of which is concentrated near the Gulf of Paria, just miles from Venezuelan waters. Multiple indicators point to a coordinated pressure campaign against Venezuela's energy sector. Economic enforcement. Since 2019, U.S. sanctions have severely constrained Venezuela's petroleum exports, once exceeding 2 million barrels per day, now operating at roughly 800,000 to 900,000 bpd. In response, Caracas has adapted its commercial practices, including requiring transactions in USDT stablecoin and deepening partnerships with non-Western buyers. The U.S. Treasury has actively targeted these alternative channels, designating entities like China's CCRC following a reported $1 billion investment. Maritime pressure. Parallel to financial restrictions, U.S. Southern Command has significantly expanded naval activity near Venezuela. This includes sustained patrols by surface vessels, drone surveillance, and periodic carrier group deployments, such as the USS Gerald or a Ford Strike Group in late 2025. According to regional monitoring groups, U.S. forces have conducted at least 21 interdictions or kinetic actions against vessels in or near Venezuelan waters since September 2025, resulting in over 80 reported fatalities. Venezuelan officials describe these incidents as attacks on civilian maritime traffic. Together, these measures form a comprehensive pressure framework, combining financial isolation, export disruption, and visible military presence. U.S. officials maintain that operations in the Caribbean are part of a broader effort to combat transnational criminal networks, including those allegedly linked to elements within the Venezuelan state. In 2025, the U.S. designated the Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization, broadening the legal basis for interdiction. However, independent analysts note a strategic dimension beyond law enforcement. Dr. Christopher Sabatini of Global Americans, among others, argues that the scale and positioning of U.S. forces serve as a signal of resolve aimed not at invasion, but at compelling political recalibration in Caracas through sustained pressure. This interpretation gains weight when considering drug transit patterns. U.S. and UN data suggest only 5 to 15% of cocaine originating in Colombia moves through Venezuelan territory. The disproportionate military footprint, paired with sanctions enforcement infrastructure like the Trinidad radar, points toward a larger objective, reinforcing U.S. influence in a region where Venezuela maintains strategic partnerships with Russia, China, and Iran. Venezuela has responded with forceful rhetoric and military mobilization. President Nicolas Maduro condemned the deployment of U.S. naval assets, including reports of a nuclear-powered submarine, as an unjustified threat. In response, Venezuela activated reserve militia units and reinforced naval patrols around its key oil terminals in the Orinoco Belt and Paraguana Peninsula. Yet the regional response has been notably divided. Major Latin American powers, including Brazil under President Lula da Silva, Colombia under President Gustavo Petro, and Mexico, have declined to endorse U.S. coercive measures. Instead, they emphasize dialogue, non-intervention, and multilateral diplomacy. This divergence marks a clear departure from the 20th century hemispheric alignment often associated with the Monroe Doctrine, reflecting a more multipolar regional order.